wins Pocono and wins his way to the playoffs. Bobby Zelensky gonna double down in 2024. He goes back-to-back at the Chicago Street Course. He's headed back to the championship for Steven Wilson, winner at Texas Motor Speedway. Parker White wins at Phoenix and will fight for an eNASCAR championship in 2024.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
It's that time of year once again where we get to see who will get a qualifying slot for the 2025 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. It's myself, Paul Smith, and our Arjuna Kankipati bringing you all the action from Portimão here today. And Arjuna, we're back again. What a thrill ride this has been, 6 weeks.
Professional, making sure I can't talk over you. It's going to be a wild ride, Paul. I mean, we ended what was one of the shortest Porsche Esports Supercup seasons earlier this year with a really interesting swing and dynamic, right? Redline very much the team to beat, but that mid-season tournament brought a lot of fun. The shorter format as well of the schedule raised the intensity. And now what are we in for? The question is, how many Contender Esports drivers will be returning to the big show when we go racing in 2025?
Yeah, we'll touch on some of the competitors in a few moments' time here on this show. But let's just see how people have taken the journey to the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup of 2025. It started off with the qualifying series. The top 15 qualified for this, the Contender Series, who will compete against the 15 who did not finish in the top 15 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. We also have a few drivers gaining entry through various different markets of the different Carrera Cups and things like that in the esports side of things. The top 15 though, whoever gets the top 15 here in this championship will then go on to see themselves in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. And Arjuna, we've had the qualifying series happen. There were some key things that happened throughout that series.
Yeah, and I think one thing to keep in mind as well as we get ready to go, not all, might be more than 15 that qualify, right? So always got to keep yourself in contention, especially knowing the chaos that the qualifying series brings. And so, I mean, Beckham just here started off the qualifying series with a bit of a statement on pole ahead of the likes of Josh Rogers. And look at the contact between Contender Esports teammates behind. One off on the left, one off on the right. Not exactly what you expected from a team known usually for working well together. And one of the new recruits, Elvis Rankin, of course, we were on the short layout of the Hockenheim ring in the qualifying series. A, not the ideal bit of contact. B, Terrible rejoin from Elvis. I think he will slightly rue that one. And I mean, even thinking about Josh Rogers, the run through turn one, he was the car pushed out wide. 3 wide never works at turn 1. You had Drago racing in the mix as well, all through the chaos. Other drivers scampering through. Rogers tried to recover, but you can see the amount of damage to the back of his car. Redline showed us, though, this year in the Esports Supercup how important teamwork and having teammates together was going to be. And it was no different for the most part in the qualifying series, especially heading over to Watkins Glen, where, you know, we run this oval sort of a layout. It really builds up the intensity. And so as much as the Apex Racing team tried to disrupt the rhythm, when you can work together on the radio, sometimes your best intentions come, unfortunately, to blows. And you can see here just a little bit of contact, washes out wide, and no time to react. Teammates making that little bit of contact. The final talking point, though, Rogers putting the disappointment aside of the opening round, really showing up strong for the rest of the qualifying series. And we call him sometimes the king of qualifying. We know how calm, cool, and collected he can be. And Paul, I had the chance to speak with him this summer. I was with him at the Esports World Cup, where he was competing with Porsche Contender Esports Racing Team. And I got this sense that Rogers is here not to mess around. He's having to juggle double duties a little bit, but the one thing that he's, I think, figured out is how to make that work. And now, for the meantime, he's able to focus just on this Contender Series.
Yeah, 2021 is the last time that he competed in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. He won that championship. Didn't defend his championship after that, and went and focused on other duties. But certainly, great to see him in the Contender Series. Not guaranteed to get through into the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. That's what is so great about this Contender Series. Anyone of these fields could end up getting themselves a qualifying spot in next year's Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. Well, we've had a look at those clips from the qualifying series. Here is how the points work. It's the same as the full Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. The top 5 in qualifying, they get points. Then in the sprint race, half points are scored down to 20th. And the feature race, it is that 50 points for a race win. All that focus really goes towards that feature race.
The qualifying series runs a lot of the same tracks that we run in Contenders and the main Esports Super Cup, but shorter layouts. The Contender series runs some of the shorter layouts. However, it introduces a format from the Super Cup. The idea being drivers from the Super Cup have the advantage in knowing the format. Drivers from the qualifying series maybe have a bit more of an advantage in having done the reps to get up to speed for the qualifying series, dialed their setups in, dialed themselves in. So this is where you now have to figure out, right, qualify first. The pressure's on as well with that one-lap qualifying format, especially knowing some of the tracks we're going to, Paul, and track limits, as ever, being a hot button talking point.
Yeah, they certainly are. The schedule then for this short, sharp Contender Series. We're starting off here at Portimão at the Algarve. Next week, we head on over to Japan and Okayama. Then it's Laguna Seca. 2 tracks that are quite tight and twisty, so it'll be interesting to see how they get there. Talking of tight and twisty, Zolder is going to be there in week 4. Sachsenring, and then finishing off at the glorious Spa-Francorchamps, where we've seen some of the most exciting races in Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup history. So make sure you stick around for this 6 weeks of action. But we are getting ourselves close to the start of qualifying. There's San on screen, and it's giving us the webcams. And this is what I love, Arjuna, being able to see the drivers who are going to be competing in these races.
He's got his biggest fan. Keeping them cool right now. That's important in these sort of stressful conditions as well. And you mentioned, Paul, that some drivers qualifying through various Porsche markets. He's one of those drivers. Going to be really interesting to see how we mix it up. I think Andrew Caron, as we look at Josh Rogers, he's also one to watch. We had coverage on RaceBot TV of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada, where he was definitely very impressive on his way to a championship, right? So these are some of the drivers who may not have necessarily been competing in the qualifying series, have done very, very well outside. Jakub Maciejewski, by the way. Look at the guns on display. The privateer been competing for Team Falcons this year in the Esports World Cup.
Yeah, certainly. And of course, somebody who's trying to get back onto the grid of the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup after competing this season. And yes, there's going to be a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces as well out there. Certainly one that we are going to be keeping an eye on. Well, they're in qualifying, and here's the thing. Normally in iRacing, when you have solo qualifying, you get 2 laps to complete. Here, well, it's a bit more difficult, isn't it, Arjuna? We're just giving them 1 lap to set a time.
It's something that, you know, as a whole in esports has become more and more common. You know, even this past Thursday, iRacing kicking off its brand new IndyCar Butt Kicker iRacing Pro Series, same 1-lap shootout, and I love the pressure that it builds. And at this track in particular, Paul, just looking at the track map, there's 2 places in particular you've got to watch track limits. Through this final couple of corners where you're trying to extend the track, limited downforce in this Cup car, of course, and turn 1, high-speed right-hand corner with a bit of braking down the hill as well. We'll ride on board with Maciejewski. Let's see what the lap's got for us here. 6 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, drivers finishing their out lap. This is now going to be their hot lap down into turn number 1. Tricky corner. It's quite tight on entry. Use all the curb and then some. Through 2, which is a nothing corner, and into 3, a hairpin. Keep the car tight because you want to be onto the right-hand side of the track to go through and open this left-hander over the top of the crest. The car wants to push wide through that right-hander, and then you've got a downhill braking zone into turn number 5. Another hairpin, long braking zone. One of your overtaking opportunities through there. Through then the left-hander at turn 6. 7 is an interesting one. You want to avoid the curb on the inside line and not launch yourself, and then onto the brakes whilst turning through turn number 8. Again, another tight corner up over the hill. This is one thing and one feature that you'll see of this track: undulation as we go sweeping through turn number 9 into 10. This is a tricky one then. 10 into 11, you're turning and slowing at the same time. Plunge downhill again through this sweeping turn number 12 to the right hand side, onto the brakes, tight into the hairpin at turn 13. 2 more corners to go, Arjuna. It's quick, it's fast, the corners keep coming at you, but it's quite a technical circuit here as well.
Yeah, not the best lap for Maciejewski, quite scrappy in many ways, and given that he's working by himself, going to be interesting. Are there any games that have been played in qualifying, right? That's always a thing that we're trying to figure out. Coanda, 12 cars. They've got strength in numbers to try and figure things out. He'll break the timing beam. 1:45.363. Ooh, it's a good 4/10 off of Dane Warren, who's got the benchmark set down. 4 times on the board. Initially 3 Coanda drivers up front, and it's their newest recruit, Tristan Iglesias, who might just have set the benchmark. But here comes Josh Rogers.
Well, he was the king of qualifying in Pesk. He comes across the line and puts himself on pole position by 3.5 tenths of a second so far. A couple of drivers left still to put a lap time in. Elvis Rankin into top 9, Michael Gianni into 4th place now. Well, Dino Lombardi, the Italian, he is going to be finding himself out there for grid and go. Change of scenery for him. And what can he do here as we're coming towards the end of the lap now, as Lombardi through the right-hander, up and over. And well, he's just got to get himself the perfect lap to try and get himself into, ideally, the front row of the grid.
Well, right now, Coanda 1 through 5. I made a bold statement to Paul just before we went live, which may come true. I'm going to say it now, and maybe I'll sound smart, maybe I won't. I would not be surprised to see Coanda lock out the top 5 in every single one of the races across of a relatively short season. Let's see if they're going to start off qualifying on the best foot possible. Dino Lombardi, long, patient run out of this final corner. Like you mentioned, change of scenery. A lot of the Altus Esports drivers still looking for new homes, but he's landed at grid and go. Great to see him line up with the blue and slightly darker blue team. Going to be curious to see how he goes as he pushes himself to the line.
And there he goes across, gets his lap time in, 1:45.1, puts him 11th place then on the grid, and doesn't seem too happy with that at all. So pulls up. That should be the last of our drivers setting a lap time. 3 drivers not setting a lap time. Lasse Bag, Alan Vasquez, and Simone Mania Marcheno. So 3 drivers maybe potentially getting caught out by track limits. We've got about 2 minutes now just to get ourselves settled down and prepared I did see, just before we get ready, I did see in one of the chats there, how many rounds for the Contender Series? We've got 6 weeks. That's all it is to get yourself qualified into the 2025 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. But there's your pole sitter, Arjuna, and Josh Rogers now just trying to relax before the start of the sprint race.
Switch gears, get ready to go. Remember that we do have it's what an 8-lap race coming up first or so it's relatively short for these drivers. Not much time. It also means not much time to make mistakes, right? So you're really just trying to maximize. Tristan Iglesias, by the way, what a signing for Contender Esports. He very well could be one to watch. We called out Becken Desir as also being a potential contender from the Williams Esports camp. Paul, I think there's some newcomers who will end up as contenders for the Rookie of the Year in 2025 and potentially even challenging for a top 10.
Yeah, certainly. Michael Jani there trying to get back into this championship as he gets himself prepared for this race. So, yeah, Jani, just nice. This is the thing that always gets me. The majority of drivers before a race, nice and calm. It's very rare that you see anybody stressed before the start of a race.
No, but maybe that's where they need to learn from Kevin Siggy, who smashed his head into a steering wheel a couple of times, and that helped him win the Esports World Cup Drivers' Championship. But for the most part, let's be honest, yeah, you want to stay locked in. I think that's the best way to describe it, right? So, going to be curious. Who's going to get a good launch here? Standing starts, something that, you know, these drivers will practice. But once you get the pressure of the lights building, there's only so much that you can do.
So, here we go then. We'll get ourselves set for the starting grid here in just a few moments' time. And these drivers will then get, as I say, 8 laps of sprint race action and then 16 laps of racing. But here we go then. Josh Rogers and Tristan Iglesias share the front row of the grid with Dane Warren, Michael Jani in row number 2, Mitchell de Jong and Carlos Fenalosa for Drago Racing, the first of the non-Coanda cars. Florian Labigra on the 4th row of the grid, alongside him is Roger Christensen. Marina Sanika and Elvis Rankin share row number 5. Row 6, Dino Lombardi and Will Chadwick. 7th row of the grid, Julian Sonnen and Bryn Collins, the 2 teammates, with Matti Sipola and Nicholas Matteo then sharing row number 8. The 9th row is Xander Reed and Andrew Caron. Row number 10 then, Quentin Violate and Jakub Maciejewski, with Luis Belike and Daniel Pasto then on row number 11. Row 12 for Elliot Veyron and Daniel Svani. Next row of the grid for row number 13, Bobby Zelensky. He won't be happy with that, with Rafael Silva alongside him. Leo Gariboli and Pascal Costa then on the next row of the grid. Row 15, Chuyen San and Aaron Vasquez. And then 2 drivers at the back of the grid who did not set a lap time. Lassie Bach and Simone Mania Marchena. So there we go then. That is the grid. 32 drivers on the grid here for this opening race, an opening round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Very, very quickly then, sprint race. Are we just going to see it nice and calm, or a bit of chaos, Arjuna?
It's interesting because Rogers, you know, he's sometimes been sent back to 8th with the inverted qualifying, then run down for the sprint. So he's not always accustomed to starting up front. He'll be looking to try and control. Coanda will try to work together, though.
Here we go, then. It is the start of the Contender Series. The engine revs rise.
Green flag.
And we are underway here in Portimão. Straight away, Josh Rogers and drivers all trying to sort themselves out through there. We're going to spin around, and it's Will Chadwick. There's another car around as well. That was Maciejewski involved in all of that. So carnage happening through turns number 1 and 2. But up and over the rise, then through turn number 4, plunge downhill. It's Coanda, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With then Drago Racing, Carlos Fenalosa in 6th place, and everybody else trying to be into that top 10, Arjuna.
It's a bit of three wide. Will Chadwick got squeezed by Dino Lombardi to the wall at turn one. I think that's kind of instigated and set the tone for what the mid-pack's going to look to try and do for the rest of this. Matti Siepela gets in front of Lombardi in that Sontec Racing number 11 as they work their way through the long right-hander, and this is where the elevation change in these cars in particular must feel so difficult to manage. The patience required as you work into the final sector. Look at the teammates battling. Not often you see Contender Esports teammates wheel to wheel. It's Bryn Collins with an aggressive move to try and get past Xander Reed.
Yeah, the two youngsters of the Contender Esports team battling it out there in 14th and 15th places respectively. Oh, more tyre smoke happening there. That was Andrew Caron then who had a moment, I would imagine a bit of contact, and more contact. That's Bobby Zelensky getting knocked sideways. Oh my goodness, this opening lap, there's been plenty of Morse code going on out there, Arjuna, but I don't think it was necessarily all SOS.
Bobby Zelensky, by the way, getting ready to fight once again in the top 4 of the eNASCAR iRacing series. So he's got one more race to focus on and then full focus back on making it into the Porsche Esports Supercup. Going to be very excited to see how he can push on with the amount of team support that he'll have. Fenellosa's dropped behind, one of the, maybe the only red line represented that we have in the series, Florian Lebigra, who's pulling double duties. Thursday night racing an IndyCar, Saturday here trying to qualify his way back to the Super Cup.
Oh, it's really intense stuff here, and now Elvis Rankin trying to go past Fenellosa. So after a promising start to Fenellosa's race, he's just dropping back a couple of positions. Last year in the Contender Series, only just missed out on qualifying for the full Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. He'll be hoping to go better this time around. And then through the right-hander, up and over and down again. It's a real roller coaster as this track. It's absolutely fantastic. Xander Reed is working his way through the field. I can see on our timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen. Up now. Oh, well, fighting with Matti Siepela, 11th and 12th place. There they are.
And you can see just how much time they've lost to the top 10, who, remember, we will have an inverted top 8 for the feature. So Rogers wins. He'll start from 8th, Fenellosa in that inverted pole. Really just with Moreno Sorica and Roger Christensen to deal with. A bit of a half spin there. Slow car, Rafael Silva potentially losing a bit of ground. Daniel Pastor dropping down the order as well. Argy Bargy, helter-skelter mid-pack. What's new? Welcome back to the Porsche Esports Super Cup if you're joining us for the very first time.
Yeah, this is what to expect, and we're going to get this for 6 weeks. There's a car around. It's Jakub Maciejewski. Oh, round and round it goes, and he's going to pull that car back to pit road. So that's going to be the end of his sprint race, I do believe. Mechanical meatball warning flag for him. As there goes Reed down the inside of Matti Siepela, but Siepela is not giving this one up without a fight. And Siepela is somebody who has been there, done it. He knows what it takes to be in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, but he wants to get back there as now he comes under pressure from Julian Sonin, another experienced hand.
And you have to wonder, right, knowing that there were 12 Coanda teammates, have some of these drivers formed allegiances beyond their regular teams? For example, Matti Siepela was racing with Maciejewski in the Esports World Cup, so maybe they've just continued to help each other outside of that realm as well. Oh. Lombardi gets sent around. Lewis Bielica, I think, get tangled up as well, and maybe one Coanda machine. But Paul, I think one thing we've realized, early stages of this championship, no one wants to give an inch.
No! Oh, no! Big moment! Big moment there. Around it goes. And that's the Savani then into the gravel trap. And my goodness, I was about to say that this is like stepping into the octagon. Well, I think they're taking it a bit further than that. This is just around the back of the pub fight in the car park.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what Daniel Savini could have even done in that situation, to be honest, because I was saying on the opening lap, right, that's the sector of the track where it must be difficult with the elevation. Cars getting light as you come over the crest of the hill here, and the Apex car comes over and slightly tangles into him, right? So, I mean, he gets shoved around, fortunately doesn't hit the wall, but loses all those positions. I tell you what, race control at the end of this one, they're going to have a busy one.
Yeah, there is post-event stewarding takes place, so don't necessarily... oh, car going straight on there. That's Andrew Karen in the WSR Esports Butt Kicker car. Yeah, it's you know, don't necessarily expect people to be sort of finishing where they start, or where they finish in the provisional results. That's up to the post-race stewarding. As we carry on then, lap number 4 at the front, it's still Josh Rogers ahead of Tristan Iglesias, with Dane Warren in 3rd, Michael Gianni 4th, and Mitchell Dion in 5th place. Florian Lebigra, there you see on screen momentarily, he's getting involved, and that is what happened to Dino Lombardi.
It looks so innocent, doesn't it, right? Like, just the smallest little bit of drama, but that rejoin not ideal either. Somewhere Connery Maddock will see that and get just absolutely notified. And for Maciejewski, car went around very early. Good job from those around to avoid collecting him. And so, again, a bit of an example for all these teams, these drivers recognizing who they can and can't work with. Will Chadwick, couple of bumps down the hill into turn 1. Fortunate that he was spun back in the right direction, all things considered. He's running 22nd right now.
Yeah, you think he was almost last at turn number 1 of this race. Here we go. Here's the replay of the start again. And then bang, bang, around he goes. And yeah, as you point out, 22nd for him in all of this. This just shows you how much carnage has been out there. People trying to set themselves an early marker. The problem is some drivers are not setting a good marker right now, in my opinion.
No, definitely not a good marker. At least not the one that they'll want to continue form-wise. Right? I'm not sure necessarily everyone is to blame for their incidents. Chadwick, for example, he got a big block from Lombardi at the start, so I think he was then kind of compressed and pitched to the inside, and a bit of a bowling ball after that. Others, though, clearly, like I said, intent there right from the drop of the off to get the elbows out, to be physical, and clearly in these short races as well, track limit's not too much of a factor. Look how they fan themselves all the way to the left-hand side of the track. Rafael Silva comes under fire from Simona Mira-Marcheno, but behind, the battle between Zelensky and Chadwick, intense to say the least.
Yes, intense for sure. This is absolutely incredible stuff that we're seeing here. This is all sort of mid-pack stuff that we're looking at, where it is a bit more compressed. At the front, it's a bit more spread out. But here's the thing: when you consider that the difference in times between pole position, a 44.6 in qualifying, that less than a second covered the top 20. So it just goes to show just how close this field is. In fact, it was the top 26 that was covered by less than a second. It shows that it's close stuff, and it's the smallest of margins that you're dealing with here.
You know how Formula One has the 107% rule? There was a race, it was either last year or this year, early in the season, it might even have been the season opener, where the field in qualifying, every car set a time, and the field was split by 100.7%. If you want to talk about margins here, blink and you lose 5 positions. Slide wide, you lose 10 positions. It sounds simple. That's why Lasse Bak, a driver that I think you and I, Paul, would have expected to be fighting towards the front. Last time he was in the Contender Series, he was a real name to be reckoned with. He's in 19th. He's got a lot of work to do, all because he didn't set a qualifying time.
Yeah, been working his way through the field, it must be said. Good stuff from Lasse, but now behind Elliot Veyron, and that'll be easier said than done to get past as we go into the hairpin once again, and it's out of there. You've really not got an opportunity to make any moves through these next couple of corners. It's all about the slow speed stuff, the heavy braking, and if you can get a good line, a better line than the driver in front of you, it's one of those old school, it feels like an old school track in that you have to set up people 3, 4, 5 corners ahead of where you're actually going to make the move.
Or, my preferred option, now that I've watched the Porsche Esports Supercup qualifying series for a couple of years, just run people out of the way. I'll be honest, Paul, I didn't get to watch much of the qualifying series this year, which is a bit of a shame. I always enjoy seeing what's happening, but you saw from the highlights, right? I mean, turn 1, the first corner of the season, Coanda teammates side by side, 3 wide with Drago, and Roger spun around. That is what the qualifying series is all about. now that you're here, like you say, you've got to plan things out a little bit more on a track like this. I've got to say, what a first round to the season that we have, right? And there's some really interesting tracks. Okayama coming up next. I mean, that's a track that drivers might have experience at, but probably not in this car, right? So first time we've come to Portimão in the Porsche Esports Contender Series, hoping we may see it in the 2025 Supercup.
Oh, I'd love to see this in the Supercup. This would be a fantastic track for that series. Bryn Collins we did briefly see on screen before we come away from him, but look at this then. 5 Coanda cars at the front, then it's Florian Lebigre, the Team Redline representative, in 6th place. And then there's another Coanda car of Elvis Rankin behind. I mean, Lassie back once again, taking the move down the inside at turn number 5 and still cannot get past Elliot Veyron.
And Elliot Veyron, I'm just recognizing how many of the drivers have got double duty to pull on Thursday nights with
a mistake.
Small mistake as well, turns into a big mistake.
Yeah, that's 1 position lost, make that 2 positions lost for Bryn Collins. He's got damage to the side of his car. We know how aggressive Bryn Collins can be, the young Welshman. As they go through, him and his brother still owe me and Sadekist a donut, by the way. As they go through and onto the brakes once again, but Bryn, big lock-up. It's so easily done with this car through some of these corners where you're turning and braking at the same time, and as you said earlier on, one little mistake, one little miss of an apex, and you lose positions.
Simone Marcheno is going to try and make a move on Daniel Pastro as we get ready to start the final lap. The easiest way to think about it, if the steering wheel is straight, you can brake at 100%. If you're turning, let's say 25% to the right, now you can only brake 75%. If you ask for more, you lock the tire. And that's unfortunately so easy to do in this car. It's why, Paul, we do sometimes think about in the feature race tire management. Daniel Pastro locks up, goes straight, and now drops a couple of positions.
There goes one, there goes another. So Daniel Pastro then behind Zelensky and Chadwick down to 23rd through that again. But one little mistake, that's all it takes as we carry on in this race. But Josh Rogers, Tristan Iglesias at the front, they've been doing a solid job up there, and they've slightly gapped Dame Warren behind them. They must be feeling comfortable though, having all of that rear gunner action to stop Team Redline driver Florian Lebigre coming in.
And the first race is living up to my prediction of the Redline, or rather Coanda top 5. That Redline driver, there will be a concern when we flip around the top 8, right? And now it's Carlos Penelosa, Elvis Rankin on the front row, Florian Lebigre, Mitchell de Jong on the second row. So suddenly Lebigre is in a position to really make things difficult, Paul, in what is, let's not forget, slightly longer race as well.
Absolutely. Well, the driver who started on pole position has just got one more corner to go through. And there you see him on screen through the right-hander, and it's going to be a sprint race win for Josh Rogers here in the opening Contender Series race at Portimão. Rest of the field coming through, finishing where they are, the top 8, as you mentioned. Carlos Penelosa will find himself in that inverted grid position, Arjuna. But this is where some of the drivers here will not be used to that format and having to work through the longer second race.
They'll all have watched it, right? But now you're experiencing it and you're trying to figure out what makes sense. For Rogers, great, he's grabbed the points in qualifying, grabbed the points in the first race, and now he's got to do some work, right, to try and grab maximum points from the first event. It's not as simple as pole and victory. No, you've got to now make 7 moves to get to the front. It all starts with a good start, and now the pressure starts to build.
As we see the results, and it's a Coanda 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rogers, Iglesias, Warren, Gianni, and de Jong. And then it's the first team Redline car of Florian Lebigre in 6th place. Rankin, Penelosa, Sarika, and Christensen round out the top 10. In 11th, it's Xander Reed with Mati Sipola in 12th. Sonnen, Matteo, Vasquez, Violate, Veyron back. Collins and Marcheno moving their way through, back and Marcheno from the back of the grid. Top 20 for them. Zelensky and Chadwick had issues out there, as did Pashto. Dino Lombardi as well got roughed up. Pascal Costa there, Garrett Burley, all those drivers that you're seeing there further down the field, all having incidents throughout this race. And the final two drivers, Andrew Karan is the last one to finish, Jakub Maciejewski, the only retiree. So that is the sprint race done and dusted. We've got a few minutes, 4 minutes before the main feature race here, Arjuna. And, well, drivers were getting quite roughed up there in that first one, weren't they?
Yeah, but I think, you know, that's kind of normal, especially at any level of top sim racing. You kind of expect the physicality. These are just the kind of cars, though, where it's so difficult when you make contact to try and hold on. You can see right now the couple of practice starts happening as well. Pretty good idea if you're further back and, you know, the likes of Savini, because you're going to have so much chaos in front of you. A good start potentially leapfrogs you 3-4 positions forward, make that 5-6 if a couple of cars spin in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, drivers, it's an essential time to get yourself prepared. If you've had a bad race, it's a way of resetting yourself and thinking, right, let's go again and let's push on. Track conditions, that track temperature of 39 degrees, it's not the hottest that you'll ever see, but it's quite warm with a lot of long radius corners around this track. It's going to be a lot about protecting that front left tyre for the later stages of this race, isn't it?
14 laps, a little bit longer, and so that's going to be an intriguing thing to keep in mind. I think this track might not be as bad on tyres as maybe some of the others, Paul, that we have seen, where we have talked about tyre wear even in qualifying, right? So that's something to keep in mind. The wind is also moving around. It's not necessarily a car that, you know, a downforce machine where you expect it through these long radius corners to be impacted by that. But just when you're in these little battle packs and the slightest little mistake can cost you so much, right? You've always just got to make sure that probably being conservative, not conservative enough to open up any doors to hungry drivers behind.
As we get ourselves down to just 2 minutes remaining in the warm-up. Pleasure to have you all along here, wherever you're watching, either on the Porsche Twitch, on the iRacing Twitch or YouTube, or even on Racebot TV. Pleasure to have you all along here. It's Paul Smith and Arjuna Kankipati bringing you all of the action here in the Contender Series of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. And, well, just 15 drivers will get an automatic or top 15 qualification spot for next year's Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. But, as you mentioned, Arjuna, there could be 1 or 2 extra slots depending on drivers who finished inside the top 15, how they get on.
I've got my suspicions. That's all I'm going to say. Much like when Rogers abdicated the throne in 2021 and therefore opened up the spots to some other drivers to get their shine, I think we're going to be in a similar situation. And so for top 15, that's what the focus is, right? You want to guarantee yourself a chance. As long as you are inside of the 16, 17, I think you've still got a chance. And, you know, 18... maybe a little bit uncomfortable. There's a look at Mitchell de Jong, by the way, who does seem to be in America in his rig at home rather than at the Contender Esports Hub. So good to see Mitchell, who was back in the rallycross car a couple of weeks ago, winning as well, back stateside and back in the Contender Series. Great to see.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, nicest guy as well. He's such a nice guy. And I've met his family as well, his mum and dad, and they are really, really sweet people as well. And yeah, a lot of time for Mitchell and his exploits in rallycross. It's certainly worth keeping an eye on. Well, we'll see how he goes on in that one. But that is going to be the end of the warm-up period for the drivers between races. We'll get ourselves set for 16 laps of action here around the Autodromo Internacional de Algarve. And well, Josh Rogers took a race win in the sprint race. What can he do from 8th place on the grid? Let's take you through then your starting grid here with the top 8 inverted. That means that Carlos Fenolosa and Elvis Rankin share the front row of the grid, with Florian Lebigra and Mitchell de Jong, Magical Journey and Dane Warren on run number 3. 4th row of the grid for Tristan Iglesias and Josh Rogers, and then everybody else is where they finish. Sarika Christensen on row number 5, row 6 for Reed and Sipila. 7th row of the grid for Julian Sonin and Nicolas Mateo, with Alan Vasquez and Quentin Violate, the 2 teammates sharing row number 8. 9th row of the grid for Veyron and Bat. Row 10 for Bryn Collins and Marchena, with Zelensky and Chadwick on row number 11. Row 12 for Pashto and for Lombardi. 13th row of the grid, Costa and Garibaldi, with Belike and Zan then on row number 14. Row 15 for Silva and Caron. And then the final 2 on the grid, Daniel Savani and Jakub Maciejewski, will be trying to recover whatever he can. Now, worth remembering, it's double the points for the race win in this race compared to the sprint race. Points go all the way down to 25th. We should be seeing some action here, shouldn't we, Arjuna?
No, for sure. And again, I think the inverted top 8, how does Coanda work themselves back towards the front? You've got Rankin and de Jong who will be on the line together trying to maybe make something happen. Then everyone else behind, and they'll be on the inside, I should say, as well. So they'll be trying to get a good start, make something happen. Behind them, they're going to hope to be backed up by the likes of Rogers, Iglesias, Warren, and Johnny, who have 2 rows to themselves to block off the rest of the competition from fighting towards the front. The team game could help Coanda once more.
We've been focusing a lot on Coanda, but let's not forget Fenalosa. What an exciting driver he is. He's starting on pole position here in the feature race. And the drivers now will sit there, engine revs rise. And we're underway for the feature race. It's a good launch from 2nd place there of Elvis Rankin. He's got the inside down into turn number 1, and he's going to be taking the lead at turn number 1. Fenalosa running a little bit wide. This is going to allow Lemigre to follow through, and that means that Florian's up into 2nd place in this race. Good start for the Team Redline driver. Absolute nightmare for Fenalosa. Everybody else working their way through. No incident through turns 1, 2, and 3 as we head on up over the hill, downhill towards that big braking zone at the hairpin at turn number 5. And Josh Rogers is having to get a little bit defensive here, but so too is Sarika and Christensen.
Again, that's where they're just trying to hold on and prevent anyone from working forward, because now the teammates are single file together. They'll try and coordinate, and someone on the radio, whether it's Pash Gergis, Jorns Jens, not quite sure, will be trying to cue them up and to work together. Maybe it's even Zach Campbell on the radio, Charlie Collins, some of the actual Porsche Esports Supercup drivers with that experience just to look through the field and make the snap-second judgment as to what they need to do. But the judgment from Lebigre, now that he's 2nd pole, has got to be pass Elvis Rankin, pass him quickly, and try and run away.
Yeah, you want to try and get away if you can at the front. Big issue there, and that was Belike, who is around but gets going once again, not that far off the back of the field. So still, even with a driver having an incident, 10 seconds covering the entire field as they come through to finish lap number 1 of 16. And now it's just all about how things go. And look at that, Elvis Rankin all the way to the pit wall. He does not want to give a slipstream to Lebigre in 2nd place.
Yeah, on occasion, we've seen drivers move from one side of the track to the other, trying to find something that helps their tires. No, that was pure and simple. Break the slipstream, try and avoid the gap closing up, and Elvis Rankin out wide. One thing that Elvis sometimes I feel struggles with, very quick. We know just how talented he can be. Now, can he mentally deal with the pressure from behind? This is the opportunity to make it to the Porsche Esports Supercup. Car looks down low. Rankin holds on.
I think if you're in this top 8 right now, you're thinking, I'm on for some good points here, and maybe not wanting to throw something away, but I think Lebigre, Fenalosa, they can feel how there could potentially be games played by Coanda, and that they need to almost form an unholy pact, really, and try and work together as the 2 of them against this Coanda onslaught.
Remember the Super Cup this year, Coanda and Altus, I won't say working together on setups necessarily, but they would share sessions, you know, try and help each other where they could, because they didn't necessarily have the numbers to try and take the challenge to Redline, right? How things have changed and swung around, and it could very well be, if all 12 of those Coanda drivers qualify, what, 2/3 of the grid could be Redline versus Coanda. I mean, we know they're the best two teams in sim racing. It would just go to show the level of depth that they have in their driver lineup and their ability at the end of the day, Paul, to execute. You can do all the preparation, the planning that you want. If you can't get the job done when it matters, you'll never win anything.
As here we go again, Lebigre looking to try and get the run. Seems to be a better run that he gets each time. Out that last corner to the inside of turn one. Lebigre, but holding around the outside is Rankin. He's not going to get bullied out the way. And that's the problem with that turn number one. If you make that move, you've got to allow the space for the car that you're overtaking to be able to run the corner as well. So as they are, Lebigre is showing his intentions here, and he does look good through that long sweeping turn 15.
Being helped by the fact that Fenellosa's not really putting the looks in the mirrors just yet. I think seemingly content to hold on. Michael Johnny slips wide, and within a blink of an eye, the gap's opened up to 4-5 car lengths. You talked, Paul, about the mistakes on the brakes, right, and how easy it is to lock up. It's so easy as well on power down just to be a bit too confident, a bit too optimistic with what the rear tires can give you. And if you get onto the power too early and run out wide, pain gets compounded. So it's going to be interesting how Michael Johnny can now bounce back from that. May have run wide, heated up his tires, got a bit of dirt onto them as well. Elvis Rankin right now, all the pressure in his rearview mirror, no teammates to help him.
Worth mentioning as well, whilst we'll look at this lead battle, Jakub Maciejewski just needs to gain one place and will be into the points. That's 6 places gained from the start of the race. So Jakub trying to make amends for what happened in race number one. But here we go again. This is where Florian seems to have that advantage over the Coanda car. Very, very, very wide from the Coanda car. Racking up incident points there for going off track. And yeah, flash of the headlights then from Florian. He's trying to stay in the head of Elvis Rankin, and look at the focus, the laser focus that Elvis Rankin is having to give this one.
Elvis has spent some time out at the Coanda Esports Hub in Gronau. Really appreciated being able to spend some time with his new teammates and spend some time in person, right? There's that difference between spending hours in a Discord voice call, chatting and driving, versus just being there and interacting and you know, going out and having a meal together. Back at home now by himself, and seems locked in, that is for sure. I mentioned wondering, is he going to be able to cope mentally with the pressure? That looks like a driver locked in, Paul. You mentioned before we really got into qualifying the calm nature of esports drivers. That's what you want to see. It's not what you always end up seeing, right? And so the mental part of the game, the help the team can give you. A lot of teams now working with mental coaches as well. That's another thing that these teams are all trying just to maximize their performance in.
Yeah, anywhere that you can gain an advantage in this life, in this world, you need to take in this level of racing. Here we go, Fenellosa we're on board with, who's got the box seat right now. Just sit back with the popcorn, Carlos. You've got some good points here in 3rd place after finishing 8th in the sprint race. But if anything happens between these two, this is the driver who is going to take advantage of all of that Draco racing car.
He's a wily veteran as well, isn't he? Someone that you know, no matter what car he's competing in, will be in the mix and always ready to pounce. And I think right now, Lebigre is doing the pushing. He's asking a bit more of his own tires, trying to get Rankin to make a mistake. This is a much longer race in the sprint, so Fenellosa maybe just thinking, let me save a little bit for the end. I've got the sea of purple and orange still queued up behind me. They'll try to pounce if I make a mistake, maybe push a little bit too hard. If Lebigre doesn't get a chance, though, to make a move, Paul, all this time that Fenellosa's sitting behind, could it be for naught at the end of this race?
I don't know. It's very difficult. I mean, right now, if I'm Fenellosa, I'm happy where I am because I'm getting to sit back, watch these two go at it, but I'm also able to just focus on looking after my tyres a little bit and trying to just look after that and see if that comes in later on in the race. Looking a little bit further back, Roger Christensen then in 10th place has got Xander Reed right behind, and the young Coanda driver, I say young, Xander Reed. It almost infuriates me just how young this grid gets out there, Arjuna.
I don't know if I should say anything. I'll get in trouble if I say anything too much more. I was commentating, Paul, on a 13-year-old recently. Actually, no, wrong. A 12-year-old. This morning, I was commentating on a 12-year-old in sim racing. That made me feel like the next generation of sim racers. Remember when Josh Rogers was young? Remember when Peter Berryman was young and in his very first season in an iRacing World Championship back in 2015? I mean, he's still doing it in 2024. I mean, Paul, the next generation's coming. They'll probably be coming for our spots in the commentary booth as well.
Yes, as a man who turned 40 this year, I can basically say every driver on the grid is a young driver. That is for sure. But we're looking at this action here, and Christensen doing a good job so far. Is Roger holding on to that 10th place? But now Xander Reed putting the pressure on. He's got his teammate Julian Sonin not that far behind either. Looking to the outside. Maybe trying to get the cut back on corner exit. No, contact! Christensen's around. Oh, when it was looking oh so good for him, he gets contact from behind. The Valkyrie expert driver is facing the wrong way and has dropped all the way down to 17th.
And that's what you call the sense of the producer. Right camera, looking at the right webcam and seeing the reaction. It all comes together. I mean, it was building, wasn't it, as well? You could tell that Xander Reed wasn't necessarily feeling the most patient. Speaking of, Yakumashevsky's in the thick of it all. Leo Gariboli, Pascal Costa in the impulse machine on the inside. Can see some damage on the left side of Gariboli's car. Might add some damage to the right side. And Paul, Gariboli, a driver that you and I were both introduced to initially when he won the AM Championship in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. He's continuing to get quicker, continuing to learn in the Apex Racing Academy. Love to see him here in the Contender Series.
Yeah, just to see how he's progressed through the various series, and yeah, you're absolutely right. A couple of years ago, winning the AM Championship in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain, absolutely fantastic. And to see that progression, it's always good. Will Chadwick, another one who was a school of that series as well. So these drivers, well, here's the replay then. Christensen on corner exit, he's compromised because he took that tighter line through the corner, and Xander Reed just rear contact. There was another car who got spun around. I think it was one of the Apex cars. Oh, that's Sipila. Sipila's off.
Oh, and I mean, from one replay to another we'll go, I'm sure. The one thing that I noted about Christensen's spin is that he tried, Paul, to cover the inside. Xander Reed wanted the switchback. Christensen wanted to force him the long way around. Not really recognized by the Coanda driver. Sipila on the inside. It's another Coanda driver involved in contact. To be fair, there's 12 of them, so it's bound to happen. He's off to the kitty litter. One more look from up above.
And it's again, it's the lines converging, just as we saw in the previous incident as well. And bang, around they go, and that's a drops of position then for Sipila all the way. And yeah, not good race for Matty after having a good result in a solid result in race one, I would say. 17th for him, just behind Roger Christensen, who of course had the spin prior to that. Well, at the front, it's still Elvis Rankin and Florian Lebigre, and they are gapping a little bit Carlos Fenalosa right now. And if Fenalosa isn't careful, he's going to lose the slipstream of the front two. And look at how aggressive they are now. It's snaking down the start and finish straight in towards turn number one. Lebigre, though, not quite close enough to make a move.
And, you know, they're picking up incident points on every single lap through the final corner, aren't they? There's no way that this is not a calculated ploy. Problem becomes, what happens if you start making a bit more contact, right? 2 X's start to accumulate, 4 X's. you get too many of those, I mean, you're getting straight sent to the disqualification pile, right? So like, there's a fine limit to be struck, and when you're leading, when you're vulnerable to the car behind potentially running into you and giving you the contact that puts you over the limit, Paul, I'd feel a little bit disconcerted right now. Probably a bit disconcerted if I'm in the mid-pack as well. Nicholas Mateo and one of the Drago Racing cars trying to hold on. Julian Sonnen in front of him, Aaron Vasquez behind.
Oh, it's getting all a bit close there and a bit tight and frenetic further down. A little bit of a hip check there on corner exit. And well, Mateo is now looking behind as Vasquez moving forward through all of this as well. Great action throughout the field. You don't know where to look in all of this. It's tremendous stuff here, and it's what we expected here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. There's almost contact there between the Drago and the Apex Racing team car.
Oh, I tell you what, Vasquez, that's quite aggressive, and I do love that Drago Racing livery, by the way. It's got teeth on the front end. It's not quite Roxy, it's not quite Rexy or Spike. It's its own thing. We'll come up with a nickname for it at some point, I'm sure. Paul, I've just realized, I mentioned some drivers doing double duty with iRacing IndyCar Pro Series competition. There's also the FIA F4 Global Esports Championship. Aaron Vasquez is going to be competing in that. They're racing next Saturday. We're racing next Saturday as well. Can you imagine the pressure for him? He's not going to know what track that he goes racing at in the F4 Esports Global Championship until 24 hours before. There's 2 different tracks he's got to prepare for. Oh, and he's got the 2 races here as well to think about.
Yeah, that is quite an intense program that Aaron is having to compete with, but you've got to be in it to win it, and you've got to be in the Contender Series to qualify for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup in 2025. Half the race gone, half the race yet to go in this one, and it is still Elvis Rankin who leads ahead of Florian Lebigre. The front 2 getting those positions right at the start of the race, and then we've been seeing an intense battle between the 2 of these. Carlos Fenalosa, who started on pole position, has actually closed that gap back up a bit here in 3rd place ahead of Michael Gianni, Mitchell DeYoung, Tristan Iglesias, Dane Warren and Josh Rogers. Marina Sarica, by the way, is hanging with this front group, and then there's a little bit of a gap back to Xander Reed,
who was key to all of that chaos, by the way. So we'll see if he's going to be able to close and latch onto the back of this one, because there's still 7 laps to go as we shimmy our way back around to the line. Watch the exit here, Elvis Rankin. Excuse me, sir, the track limits are the white line. We'll have a conversation with you post-race. Don't you worry about that. But, again, it's clear, Paul. That's a strategy. It's a calculated ploy. They know exactly where they can push the car. Look how wide they set up turn 1 as they try and just swing the car down through the hill. And it's always impressive trying to pick apart where these drivers have figured out where the speed is around the lap.
For anyone new who's wondering, well, hang on a second, they're just getting away with running off the track here. If you go completely off the track, iRacing will attribute you with 1 incident point. Now, if you accumulate 17 incident points in this race, you get a drive-through penalty. Now, if you spin the car, if you lose control of the car, that's 2 incident points that you gain in that 1 incident. If you have heavy contact with another car, and it doesn't necessarily have to be you at fault either, it's a no-fault system, you get 4 incident points. So it's very easy to very quickly accumulate incident points, and then you've got to tread a fine line towards the end of the race.
I don't know what you're talking about, Paul. It is a no-fault system. It's never my fault. It's always someone else's fault. 6 laps to go this time by. I will say, Fenalosa, now that he's closed up as well, if you're Gianni, DeYoung, Iglesias, Warren, Rogers, you've got 5 teammates stacked up in line who don't necessarily need to force the issue, right? Consistency at the end of the day, Paul, A, wins you championships. Just look at Diogo Pinto, Jordan Caruso, and Sebastian Job in the last 3 years of the Super Cup. It also gets you to the promised land, if you will. Here it is, the Porsche Esports Super Cup. So I would not be surprised if we don't really see them force the issue. Fenalosa and Lebigre, they're the ones that will get antsy.
driver's still making his way through the field. Jakub Maciejewski, he's now up 10 places to 22nd. Great recovery to get himself, one, back into the points to start with, and two, to carry on moving forward and pushing through. Will Chadwick, by the way, has retired from the race, and Quentin Violate is on pit road. So those two, their races are done here in that one. But right now, there is Maciejewski then. I have to mention it. It is a really good recovery drive, and it's not all been gifted to him either, has it?
No, absolutely not. And I think, you know, the thing that's helping him with this recovery drive is for every position that he gains, he's been promised that Przemysław Lemonek won't talk to him for that many days. I've got to say, love Przemysław, but boy, can he talk your ear off, Paul. Can you imagine having him as your spotter? He must be the most talkative spotter in the world. Not what you want if you're Kimi Räikkönen, who I think in many ways Jakub Maciejewski probably represents as a racing driver, calm, cool and collected.
Daniel Savini has gone back to pit road. He's also got a black flag as well, so he's accumulated incident points in this race. He was stopped out on track, so I think that's the last we're seeing of Daniel in this race. So we are seeing how these points do accumulate, and you've got to be careful here as Costa then on screen right now. You can see the focus and the concentration. A few of the drivers doing the sim races lean as well, Arjuna. Like, that helps you manage the weight of the car.
It just manages the steering wheel. You're trying to prop your weight up against the direct drive wheelbase. Also, don't forget the other thing that's prominent, not just the lean, the sim racer tongue. You can't do it in a real car because the helmet gets in the way, so you make sure you do it in the sim where everyone can see it on the webcam. As much, by the way, as I think there is going to be a fight on the final couple of laps. It might take until the penultimate lap for Labigra to really pull the hammer and start to go for things. And so, you know, think about some of these other drivers. You mentioned Maciejewski's charge up to get to 22nd. Well, directly in front of him, Daniel Pastor really hasn't made too much headway in the second race so far. Look at the oversteer as he comes over the crest of turn number 4 and trying to make his way into the top 20.
And looking in the mirror as well with his triple monitor. Oh, no, that's not a triple monitor, is it? It's a curved monitor that he's got there on screen. So yeah, he's always looking around, seeing where people are, where the drivers are, and it's interesting to see all the different setups that drivers have, either a single curved monitor or triple monitors for some of these drivers out there, as Pashto then carrying on. Back end not cooperating. Track temperature has reached 39 degrees again. It did cool down a little bit when some cloud cover came over, but now we've got clear skies in the skybox, so that means that these drivers are going to have to contend with that track just getting baked.
I think what we should do, Paul, is put every single one of these drivers on a single 15-inch monitor with a G25, not even a G27 or 29. Let's go even more old than that. Put them in a race with me. They'll still manage to beat me by at least 10 seconds if it's a 3-lap race. It will go to show to people that equipment does not make the driver maketh the equipment. Around the outside, that's a bold place to leave yourself, but it helps when you've got someone like Bobby Zalenski that you know you can dance with. And Dino Lombardi involved in the chaos in race number 1, down to turn 1 once more. What can he do around the outside?
This isn't over yet. Onto the brakes, and Lombardi, can he carry the speed around the outside? Oh, he's gonna try it. He's gonna give it a go in that grid and go car. But no, not completed yet. But if he can keep it to that side, he's got the inside for the next left-hander. Through he goes then. Move is completed, but Zelensky's coming back at this one. This is fantastic racing.
Oh!
19th is onto the grass, and Lombardi, I can tell you, has a black flag.
Did say that eventually you're going to run out of incident points to play with, and he hits that limit. You can see the shake of the head. He'll be down to pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty. Will have no choice in the matter. It was contact with Daniel Pastor, and Paul, I'm not quite sure what you can say other than all the time, you must leave the space.
Yeah, absolutely. A certain Spanish driver once said that as through the go. And Bobby Zelensky feeling the pressure from behind now. And all of a sudden, it is Maciejewski then trying to move up yet another place here in all of this. And Zelensky, you can see him having to really muscle and handle that car. It's maybe not behaving exactly how he would want it to be.
Always interesting with Bobby as well. He uses that formula-style rim, even on the ovals when he's competing in the eNASCAR series. So love to see it. Always love seeing the perspective from him as well. And you can tell it's the middle of the day in America, because during most eNASCAR races, it's totally pitch black around him. He's one of those sim racers that likes absolutely no distractions. And by the way, we're still seeing them swing themselves out wide all the way to use the runoff. Dino Lombardi did it once again, Paul. Didn't come in to serve his drive-through penalty. Just picks up another incident point for good measure.
As Matti Sipola will take too kindly to being just pushed a little bit wide there by Bryn Collins. And he's got Roger Christensen behind him. Now, there is a little bit of movement in that top 8 drivers. Mitchell de Jong and Michael Jani just swapped positions there, so change of position. Things are starting to move here in the top of the field. And Fenalosa now, I wonder if that's a little bit a case of Jani saying, I've given it a go, Mitchell, you give it a go now.
Yeah, but they waited too long. I mean, de Jong's not even going to try and hold a station for too much longer. Already shapes to the inside as they sweep their way down in through turn 12 towards 13. I mean, they'll have 2 laps to go at the line. So realistically, if they want to try and shuffle as Lebigra and Fenalosa down outside of the top 5, it's going to take something into turn 1. Look how close de Jong's trying to get through the long right-hander. He's going to be aggressive. No push to pass, no DRS, just good old-fashioned racing.
Yeah, and a great sounding engine behind them as well, pushing them all the way. Here's de Jong then, and following the slipstream of Fenalosa. Fenalosa, by the way, is following the slipstream of Lebigra and Rankin. Those 3 have stayed exactly in the same positions after the first couple of corners. And look at that concertina effect as de Jong gets all the way up towards the boot lid of that Porsche 992 GT3 Cup car in front of him, through the left-hander, up over the crest, running a little bit wide there for Fenalosa, so maybe has looked after his incident points and is thinking, now is the time to use them. I've got 17 to use, I might as well use them.
Now, the drivers don't know what the other drivers have. They only know what they have, which is for the best. Let's be real. If you knew the driver in front of you was 1 incident point away from a drive-through penalty, we like to all believe that racing drivers are fair, but there are, you know, emotions get the better of you. I'm not saying that someone would get the chrome horn out, but they'd get the chrome horn out, and so it's good. It also, though, kind of puts you in a place, Paul, where you don't know how aggressive, how willing they're going to be to defend. Because if a driver's got plenty of incident points to spare, right, I can imagine them being willing to bang doors a little bit more than someone who's got just that 1 incident point left to play, right? So if you are de Jong, how willing are you to make this move? I think it all comes down to where Fenalosa tries to place his car. He's searching for the draft. Will he try and cover off a move from the American?
3 seconds covering the top 10 here in this race. Absolutely fantastic to see. We're about to start the last lap of the race. Elvis Rankin has got a 0.4 of a second lead over Florian Lebigra as they head across that timing line. White flag in the air, Barney's waving it. And this is the last opportunities to make a move there at the front. Mitchell de Jong not close enough to make a move on Carlos Fenalosa. Fenalosa, a little bit of the tail sticking out there on corner exit of turn 2, through 3 and into 4. Lebigra, I just don't think is quite close enough to be making a move to Rankin, but one little mistake is all that it takes.
I think he ran a bit wide there, bobbled on the curb, and now I was wondering how Rankin would deal with this pressure. I mean, this is a bit of a statement to us, to himself, to the rest of the grid. He can deal with it. He can absorb the view in his rear view mirror for 16 laps. Half a lap to go before Elvis Rankin can win the first round and the feature race in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. And you've got to say, Paul, hasn't put a foot wrong, has driven the perfect race.
Certainly has. It all went from that launch from the second place on the grid off the racing line, so difficult to get the power down there, but it worked out nicely for Elvis. Just a few more corners to go then, through the final of the left-handers, and then 2 more right-handers for Elvis Rankin to hang on to this one. And it's all about getting your lines right, just getting your brakes right. Well, don't worry too much about the car behind. Look in front of you. And well, it was a Contender Esports win in the sprint race. It's a Contender Esports win in the feature race. And Elvis Rankin with a big smile, like a smile of a Cheshire cat. He's crossed the line as a race winner here in the Contender Series, the Porsche Taccar Esports Supercup. Rest of the drivers finishing their results. Florian Lebigra, good points for him in this opening week of the championship. Carlos Fenalosa, I think he'll be a little bit disappointed after getting the not the best of starts. Mitchell de Jong, Michael Gianni and the rest across the line. But my goodness, Arjuna, the first race was a bit chaotic. That second race was a bit more calm.
Chaotic at the back, but not up front, where I mean, not flag to flag victory, because he didn't lead right from the drop of the green, but from the inside of the front row, controlled once he got to the point, and that's going to help, I think, a lot of his confidence for the young Elvis Rankin. Moving forward to Okayama next week, he knows that he can win these races. All he's got to do, get it done in qualifying.
Absolutely. So the drivers will see themselves back to pit road. Let's give you your 0.3 of a second over the Team Red Line driver, Florian Lebigra. Grego Racing's Carlos Fenalosa finishes in 3rd place, less than a second covering the top 3. Mitchell de Jong then leads the Coanda 5-car train ahead of Michael Gianni, Tristan Iglesias, Dane Warren and Josh Rogers, with Marina Sarica and Xander Reed making it 7 Coanda cars in the top 10. Sonnen ahead of Matteo with Vasquez, Veyron, Bach, Collins, Sipola, Christensen, Zelensky and Maciejewski up 12 places in the end then into the top 20. Pashto, again, enough a recovery drive for him, ahead of Costa, Gariboli, Marceno and Belike. Round out your point scorers. The rest of the drivers, Silva, Shan, Caron and then Lombardi. Savini did not finish, neither did Quentin Violette or Will Chadwick. Well, that was certainly an entertaining opening to the season here in the Contender Series, and Arjuna has got our race winner alongside him, Elvis Rankin.
Dealt with the pressure, started on the inside of the front row, comes out on top in the first feature race of the season, Elvis. Congratulations. How are you feeling right now? Plenty of Coanda drivers in the series, but only a couple of you guys can win races. It must feel good to come out on top. Oh, and he's forgotten to unmute his microphone. Look at that.
Hello. I am a noob. I've not done an interview in a while. Yeah, but it feels really good. Obviously, a lot of us in the championship, so a lot of hard work's put in. And just happy that I was able to execute. It was a very tough race. Felt like I had a really good pace, but it was like I'd go in bursts. I'd get like 2 or 3 good laps, and then I'd make a mistake, fry my tires, have to start all over again. But yeah, Flo did a good race. GG's to him, and yeah, I'd say it was a good race overall.
What do you feel about the schedule, right? It's a bit of an interesting mix of tracks. Okayama to come. We've got, Laguna as well, but then Spa to close things out. So tight, twisty, but also those fast-flowing tracks. Where do you think you're really going to shine after this victory? Where else could we see you on top?
I don't really know. Like, I think that, to be honest, like a lot of us at the Coanda, and I feel like, especially me from ProQ, it was a lot of the tracks that we had to drive. I was pretty strong consistently across the board. Obviously, next week, Okayama, there's with a bit of a twist. Like, I don't know, it's kind of up in the air. It's kind of anybody's race next week, so we'll see how it goes. And yeah, just try and stay consistent throughout the season and try and execute at all the tracks, hopefully, Arjuna.
That's the plan. That's the goal, isn't it? Congrats, Elvis, on a great day today. We'll see you next week to continue the role in the Porsche Taccar Esports Supercup Contender Series.
Thank you.
And so a chat with our feature race winner. We can make our way now to, I believe, a chat with the 2nd place finisher, Florian Lebigra, who joins us now in the Team Redline machine. Florian, 2nd for you, able to try and put the pressure on. What more did you need to do to try and come out on top?
I think I needed a lower gap with Elvis. but I think it wasn't really needed. I didn't need it like a P1. I just needed points in P2, so I'm happy with P2 considering the quali I had. And yeah, good sprint, good feature. I'm just really happy with the work, and the result is there.
Like you say, not necessarily needing the win. Good to hear the consistency at the forefront of your mind. We mentioned that you're pulling double duty, right? Thursdays, you've got the IndyCar Butt Kicker iRacing Pro Series. Now on Saturdays, switching gears, very different type of car in this Porsche Cup car. How are you dealing with that? How are you able to switch so quickly, especially when you don't necessarily have, teammates who are able to get help, build setups and stuff with you for this Contender Series?
Well, yeah, it's a bit difficult, but I just have to plan everything for like the weeks. And I just drive a bit the Porsche Cup before the Thursday, before the Indy race, but like just to get up to pace a bit. And then I do like really hard work on Friday and today, like Saturday. And yeah, I also have an amazing team that works very well for the Indy, so I don't really have much to do, if I'm honest. So yeah.
That's how you juggle it. Hard work on Friday and Saturday to get ready for these Contender Series races. Florian, we'll see you next week from Okayama. Great result for you in the opening round of the series.
Thank you.
And a chance to chat with, I think, one more driver. We'll dial up Carlos Fenalosa in the Drago Racing number 28. Carlos, third for you, able to fend off the challenge of first Michael Johnning and then Mitchell de Jong in the feature race. How are you feeling with the first race now done and dusted? Some points on the board.
Pretty tough race, I have to say. I mean, I didn't expect to qualify so up on the standing on the position. Starting P6 was something I couldn't imagine first. I thought we could be on good positions after the preparation during the week, but nothing as I expected from starting. Just behind the Quandas. Then on the sprint, I had a mistake on the second lap, and from pole position just lost the 2 positions there, and I had to make a very defensive race, which I guess I made out perfect because I guess I had a bit less space than the 2 guys in front, and I maximized my points very well, I guess.
How are you feeling as a Drago Racing team coming into this one? Of course, you've got your teammate Nicholas Matteo in the series as well. How are you feeling confident with this Porsche 911 Cup car?
This year I feel much better, especially on mental, especially it's mental, because I guess my pace was still there last year, for example, in contenders, but I couldn't maximize my points, especially on feature races, which I only finished last year 1 out of 6. And hopefully this year I can maximize much more my points with my pace. It's a great start for the team. Nicolas did a good job out there. He did a worse qualifying than me, but his pace was still good to recover some positions.
Qualifying key, Carlos able to nail it today, and we'll see him next time from Okayama. A great result for him and the Drago Racing crew, Paul, all things considered, to open up the season.
Yeah, really positive results to start off the season. And, well, speaking of the season, I mean, this opening round, what an advertisement for the Porsche Tag Car Esports Supercup. Okay, a bit physical in the sprint race, but with it being limited laps, you kind of expect that type of racing. But that second race, a little bit more methodical and thought through with overtakes.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could make this better is if we had the Porsche All-Star Contender Series.
Yeah.
Just so I could drive around by myself and you could bug me, Paul. I think that's the only way we could make this more entertaining at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, next week, the drivers have to contend with Okayama. It's a low grip asphalt surface. You've got the tight hairpins as well. It's going to be a completely different challenge to what we saw here this week.
And it's a free track available to all on iRacing, but one that, they also wouldn't have, driven much recently since they got out of some of the lower powered content, right? So it's going to be really intriguing. Again, some of the qualifying series drivers might have a bit more experience with it, but same time, same place. I'll be here, Paul. You'll be here too, right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't miss this for the world. 9 p.m. Central European Standard Time. It's 7 o'clock UTC. for those of you who want to work that out for your local market. Well, that is all that we've got time for here from the opening round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. It was a sprint race win for Josh Rogers, a feature race win for Elvis Rankin. From myself, Paul Smith, from Arjuna Kankipati and Hugo Luis behind the scenes on the production, we'll see you next week for more Contender action.
Wins Pocono and wins his way to the playoffs. Bobby Zelensky gonna double down in 2024. He goes back-to-back at the Chicago Street Course. He's headed back to the championship for Steven Wilson, winner at Texas Motor Speedway. Parker White wins at Phoenix and will fight for an eNASCAR championship in 2024.